Our keynote speaker is Jim Harrer. He's a Principal Group Program Manager in the Cloud and Enterprise team of Microsoft. Jim has been with Microsoft since February 2016. His responsibilities include being Program Manager for BizTalk Server, Logic Apps, and Azure Scheduler. Before Microsoft, Jim was VP of Application Development for TrueBlue, where he was responsible for all internally developed business applications and integrations. Jim is going to talk about the progress made across the Microsoft's hybrid integration platform over the past year and how AI is changing the way we think about enterprise application integration. Jim, the stage is yours.
It's really great to be back this year. Last year was the first time that I was on the stage kind of sharing with everybody what we saw as the vision of this hybrid integration platform and this new thinking that Microsoft has in terms of how we're going to approach enterprise integration. So what I thought I would do today is share with you a little bit about what we shared with you a year ago. For those of you that are in the room, it'll be somewhat familiar. For those of you that weren't, it'll be kind of a refresher in terms of what we set out in this really ambitious goal of ours to put together the best hybrid integration platform in the industry. And so I'm going to kind of give you an idea, a little bit of a scorecard on how we did on that. And then we're going to share some of our thoughts in terms of what we've learned moving forward, working with some of the best corporations, around the world. We have the benefit of meeting with enterprise architects, solution architects, CTOs every single month in Redmond. They come in and we get to sit down with them, and we're starting to see a lot of patterns. And so I wanted to share some of those patterns with you today as well. Sound good? So that's what we're going to do today. Last year, we talked about this whole concept of this hybrid integration platform. And it really started with the concept of taking our BizTalk Server product and putting it together with Logic Apps. So reinvesting back into BizTalk Server and making sure that everybody understands that we strongly believe in hybrid. We're not just a cloud-only company. There's going to be a lot of reasons why you're going to want to still process integrations on-prem. And so we've reinvested into BizTalk Server, but we've also took a look at how do we make BizTalk Server stronger with cloud-based applications, and that's when we introduced the Logic Apps product. So we really see that as the core heartbeat of our hybrid integration platform, BizTalk Server and Logic Apps. And as we talk about, as you look at what we've done over the past year, you'll see that we're investing heavily in those products. But we also understood the importance of adding additional things around this hybrid integration platform. We believe in an API-first economy. So adding, having Vlad's team join the Pro Integration Group and having an API management part of our team was instrumental, and that happened last July, shortly after the conference. We put that team. We also brought the host integration server product into our team as well. So so when we think of Pro Integration today and the Pro Integration team at Microsoft, the folks that really cater to those integration specialists today, we have Logic Apps, BizTalk Server, API management, and host integration server. But we also team very closely with Dan in the Service Bus product line. So we actually team with over 80 now Azure Service product groups. We really have taken the whole one Microsoft concept that Satya laid out for us in our vision and really brought that to heart. And so our product group works very closely with a lot of Azure services. And so when we start talking about the Azure services and the values that it brings, our team works with those product groups on a monthly basis where we go in and say, okay, what can we do? What's possible? And we started taking down and started really looking at the impossibles when we hear things like, it's really impossible to do this. It's really impossible to do that. We started really dissecting those words impossible and started to say, well, what do we have to do to make them more possible? And that's what I really want to talk with you about today is how do we take the impossible and make it possible? How do we take the impossible and make it possible? In terms of the team, it's really been busy this past year. You can see based on the slide, and this is all being recorded as well, so you'll get this when it goes live. But You can see the teams have been extremely busy delivering product. I'm very pleased that Logic Apps wasn't GA'd when we spoke a year ago. Now it's GA'd. The enterprise integration pack for Logic Apps was just being thought of, and some of the bits and pieces were starting to come out. Now all the bits are done, and that product is GA'd. BizTalk Server 2016 was in preview. It's GA'd. API management went through a complete refactoring onto the new portal. Those guys are just about done and releasing the final bits now. Amazing product, amazing job that those guys did in terms of getting that product done. So you can see we've been really, really busy actually eating our own dog food when it comes to being agile, releasing things over and over again. So I have received a lot of emails, though, from our MVPs that say this: Jim, can you slow down just a little bit? How many of you have sent me that email? Come on, yes, not all of you are fessing up to it. And some of you use some interesting language in there when you say slow down. So no, we're not gonna slow down. We're gonna keep going, our foot's on the gas. It's really exciting to really bring this platform out, but it's also at the same time, we know that we have to run faster. We know that we have a lot, every day there's another SaaS-based application that's starting to gain traction in the enterprise that people want to connect to. There's something new and exciting that something new that somebody wants to unlock, some new capabilities that they want to unlock. So we are running as fast as we can in order to try to keep up with the speed of how technology is evolving. Microsoft has more data centers around the globe than anybody. I'm very pleased to announce that Logic Apps and our products are in over half of these data centers. Every single month, we invest in putting our products in more and more data centers. And I'm going to steal from Kevin's thunder a little bit, but really happy to say that Friday of this week, Logic Apps will be deployed in both UK regions as well. So we've made the huge investment, and I think this is an important slide to show because it's not just that we're delivering all of this technology, but we're also investing to get the technology pushed out so it's in the regions that mattered most to you. We did bring quite a few people from Redmond. British Airlines was very pleased with how many people we brought to London. It's really important for us, though, when we look at why are we here, we really wanted to bring all of our thought leaders to this event. And they're here because they want to meet and talk with you. They want to find out, what are we doing right? What areas do we need to make course corrections on? So we did bring a large team. And I'm very pleased, and I want to thank all of you guys for making the trip. And if you're kind of curious about the Matt Farmer photo there, he is sitting right over there, by the way. He really is not a serial killer, in case you were wondering. Very nice guy. Anyways, you can ask him the story about that photo, and I think after I heard the story, I was like, yeah, maybe he should keep it. So, but I'll let you. That's a great drinking story, by the way, for those of you that like to have an adult beverage from time to time. It's a great story. I want to also say that we have our engineering manager, Vinay, that flew in. Vinay, there you go, right here. So representing our engineering team. We have Mandy representing our content management team, content delivery. I knew I was going to mess that one up. And then we also have Sean from our business group. Sean, you can tell because he's the one wearing the coat. Come on, stand up. So he's the suit. In case you were wondering, he's the suit. So Sean's a really important guy to get to know, though. We really twisted his arm for him to come, and it was like, okay, I'll come. It wasn't really that hard. He works on all of our pricing models and all of our business models in terms of how do we stay competitive in the marketplace. So if you have any questions around, well, why is Logic Apps priced this way? Why is API management priced that way? Any of those kinds of questions, you want to seek Sean out and have a discussion with him. Partners, if you're competing against some of our competitors in the space and you want to know how we can be a little bit more competitive, or if you think our pricing's too low or any of those kinds of things, which I hear a lot about, hey, I can't make any money on it, your pricing's too low. So anyways, some of those concerns, seek Sean out. That's why he's here. He's here to talk with you and get kind of feet on the ground. Thanks for coming, Sean. I appreciate that very much. Okay. So when we talk about Logic Apps, the real reason for Logic Apps was really to try to connect all of these SaaS-based applications. And we have over 160 some connectors. Kevin will talk about those in details during his session. And Logic Apps does a really great job of connecting SaaS-based applications. But then we turned around and said, okay, how can we connect all of our Azure services? And so we started creating all of these first-class experiences with things like functions and API management and Service Bus, and started taking advantage of just all of the services that Azure has in terms to really unlock the value and making it easier to take advantage of everything that Azure has today. Whoops. And then we wanted to really attack the line of business applications. So that's where we brought in all of the universal gateways so we could talk to everything on-prem. That's where we have the Logic Apps connector where it can talk to BizTalk, and then from BizTalk it can talk to all of it, use its adapters to talk to all of those systems, and how to seamlessly bring all of those things in. And this was just the vision that we shared with you a year ago. Today, all of those products exist, all of those connections exist, and everything is GA'd now around that. So it's really come a long way in a year, and I'm really quite proud of this platform, and considering that we have it active across the entire planet, I think is pretty amazing, and just another congratulations to the team for the work that they've done. But the next step was to really start tapping into some of the really cool features that Azure has in terms of really gaining insights. And that's where we really started taking advantage of this whole concept of how do we get access to more intelligence and more insights. And that's really where I want to land for just a few minutes and talk a little bit more about this before we start doing these demos. Is I want to start talking about how do we tap more into this intelligence, because it's something that as we share with these customers that come to Redmond and we start showing them the kinds of things that they can do with the insights, they are all like, holy crud, I had no idea you could do this stuff. And as much as we try to talk about it in some of the webinars and some of the blogs and everything, we just haven't landed hard enough on what is possible, how to unlock the impossible. And that's really, I really want to spend some time talking about. So some of these services, and I'm only just going to talk briefly about some of these because we're going to show you some of these in action, but the first one is the text sentiment. Jeff did a great demo showing you how to take tweets from Twitter, throw them into a Google Sheet, or put them into any kind of other storage, but also to send it to sentiment analysis to find out if the tweet was positive or negative, and then graph that in a Power BI. Some really great technologies like that. But we've seen sentiment analysis used for all kinds of things, from taking a look at support tickets that come in and analyzing whether they're positive or negative, and then setting their priorities based off of the sentiment scores, and doing some really cool things about that. But I saw another company say, as they're adding customers to Dynamics CRM, they use sentiment analysis on the brand itself to find out what the public thinks of that brand as it's being added into Dynamics CRM. Really kind of cool stuff there. So just if you haven't played with the sentiment analysis features of Azure services, I hope this kind of inspires you to do that. You can also look at key phrases in terms of anything that you're sending it, and then obviously you can also detect its language. The next thing is this computer vision API. John Fancy did a really great demo around this in terms of really showing off the ability to OCR an image. And he would actually take a picture of an invoice and use Logic Apps to grab that picture and then completely dissect it, tear apart what the order was, what the quantity was, what the description of the items that they were buying. So basically the scenario was you have a customer that takes a picture of an order on their phone and emails it to you, and then Logic App takes it and inputs that entire order correctly into SAP. So it's just amazing what he could do with that technology. And you can see there's all kinds of other really cool things there. So if you haven't played with this one in order to gain some really intelligence, there's some really cool functionalities, and they're going to be showing you a couple things around that. Next is the Face API. This was, Jeff actually did a really funny demo last year at one of the conferences where we took the Face API, but we have a version that does animals, where we had a dog spa, and we could actually take a picture of a dog, send it to the Face API. It would register what kind of dog it was, how much it weighed, and then figured out how to auto-price the washing of that dog based on the breed that it was. And it was pretty funny, and except when he got to the end, he took a picture of himself and fed it to the Face API, and it said, oh, you're a beautiful Labrador, and you're loyal and everything else, and it's gonna be like $130 to wash you. And he was like, oh, this is a bargain. This is pretty cheap. So, but there's some really cool things you can do in terms of the Face API stuff, and we're gonna show you a couple new ideas around using that today. The Lewis feature is the ability to figure out what the content of a message is, particularly around bots. So to figure out what are they writing about, and what exactly is the intent of that message, so your bots can be smarter. Jeff and Derek Lee have both played with this one quite a bit, and there's some really cool things that you can do around this, particularly around bots. And I know Kent Ware is going to be talking about this, I believe, in some detail as well. So pay attention to that. If you haven't really played with it yet, there's some really cool things around that. And then Microsoft Translator. This is another one that a lot of people don't know about. So if you want to be able to convert a message from one language to another, if you want to take a text message and convert it to a WAV file, you can do that. There's some really cool translation options here. Again, if you're, we have a lot of customers in California that want to go back from English to Spanish a lot, and this has just really made their life quite a bit easier to do these kinds of things. And then Power BI. There's some really cool things about Power BI in terms of the integrations that we've done, but one of my favorite ones is really kind of simple. It's just capturing data when it's in your flow, when it's in your Logic app, and capturing that data and storing it off to a data set, and just peeling it off and putting it to a data set. Because then what you can do is you can then use Power BI to just look at that subset of data and do some analysis on it. And a lot of people just don't think about, oh, wow, this would really be great just to peel off this one little thing and put it into a row, and now I can report on it. And when we were sitting down with customers in these EBCs, we talk about this a lot. We say, well, how do you know about this trend or that trend? And they're like, man, we got to go through all of this data in order to get to that. And then Jeff will say, well, let me just show you again, using a simple, Twitter to Twitter feed in order to take that tweet and take the negative sentiments and put it in its place, and then you start having Power BI start doing some really interesting analytics on it. And all of a sudden it's storing it and everything else. It's one step, and he makes it so simple. And they're like, you did that in like 3 minutes. And it's like, yep, did that in like 3 minutes, and now we're adding real value to your business in order to give you that snapshot. So if you haven't played with the data set, adding a data set feature in Power BI and then reporting on that, definitely take a look at that. And again, the guys are all here, so this is one of those things where you can also take them aside and say, hey, talk to me more about this feature or that feature. We want to show it to you. Last year, we talked about this better together concept, and we talked about the fact that Logic apps and BizTalk are really better together. And we started, and we told you that we stole the page out of our playbook in terms of Office. We made Word and Excel work better together, right? And that's how we just started adding tremendous value in creating the Office brand. And we were just basically copying that strategy with our integration products. And so we've started tightly integrating Logic apps with BizTalk. And we've done quite a bit of work around this, and we're going to be doing even more. But we didn't stop there. We then started working with Vlad's team and starting creating a much better experience with these products working with API management. And the fact that you can take all of your SOAP-based APIs that are in BizTalk Server, put them in API management, and API management can convert them to REST. Stuff like that. It's just really, really cool. And really, you can do it really, really fast. And there's just all kinds of additional things that the teams are working on in order to make these better. But we didn't stop there. We also worked with Dan's team in order to, how can we make the service bus experience even better within Logic Apps? And how can we make the connector even better? And we've made some great advancements around that. And then we started working with the functions team. And how do we add, code directly from Logic Apps? So now you have a full serverless environment in terms of Logic Apps and code that only triggers whenever there's an action. And and now all of a sudden, all of the analysts are going, wow, Microsoft's serverless strategy is pretty powerful from the standpoint that in no time we can set up a Logic Apps, we can put in some function code. We don't have to provision any VMs, we don't have to buy any hardware, we don't have to get anything set up. We can be off and running in no time, and it costs pennies to really run. So really some cool stuff there. But we didn't stop there. Then we started looking at what additional connectors can we add, and started off with DB2 and MQ and some of the really cool connectors. And like I said, we've got over 150 of them. Kevin will have the latest number, because honestly, every week now they're adding so many more, I just can't even keep track of it, but he keeps the slide up to date. And then we started looking at all of these additional AI things that are really becoming very, very interesting. And we've got even more and more coming out, because we're working with these teams and as they deliver new services. And the really cool thing is all of this combined just really helps us create a limitless number of possibilities. And that's really what we're trying to do. We really wanted to attack. Last year I told you we want to start running at the speed of business. I hear from CIOs all the time, Jim, my organization is not running as fast as it needs to run for our business. That's why our business is out buying SAP our SaaS-based applications, because IT is not running faster. How do you help them run faster? And so that's everything that our team focused on over the last year was, how can you do it faster? How can you do it faster? How can you do it faster? And these guys would count the number of mouse clicks and everything that it took in order to create systems and integrate systems. And something that used to take us a month, can we really get it done in hours? And just focused relentlessly on that. And we've seen that across all of our products now in terms of how do we move faster. How many of you agree it's faster to integrate on our platform today than it was a year ago? Good, now I need to convince the rest of you, and hopefully 3 days from now, I'll get the rest of you convinced of that. So that was our very first thing. The next thing is we really want to start understanding how to increase business value. And this is where I need to really call on each and every single one of you. Our team is one of the most popular teams now in Redmond. We have so many requests for EBCs that we can't keep up. Everybody wants to talk to us. Every company that comes to Redmond, they put us on their schedule. It's like they want to talk to the integration team. They want to talk to the folks that can help integrate all of their applications. They want to talk to the team that can help them unlock business value. And we'll sit there with them for a four-hour session and go through all the things that they can do. And they turn around, they just have more questions and more questions. And they're just like, man, I can't believe we can do this to make the business more valuable, make that more valuable. I'm here to tell you that if you haven't figured it out yet, your job is changing. Your job is changing in such a big, amazing way. What we used to be, hey, we're just the integration guys in the back. We're not anymore. We're the, can you do this, guys? People. And if your organization is not talking to you about what is possible, I guarantee you they will start. And if they're not coming to you, then you need to start going to them and saying, would it help the business if you did this? Would it help the business if you did that? And start being that champion, because they're looking for it. They're coming to Redmond looking for it. So I know that all of you in the room can be that person. We have become the most valuable people in the organization, because we can take these siloed applications and we can put them together and we can unlock value out of them. And that makes us extremely valuable to the organization. It makes us extremely valuable in order to make the organization more efficient, more competitive. And so I'm going to be calling on you for the rest of this keynote. I want you to start thinking about what can you do to help your organization do more. You are the person that they're looking for. They may not know it yet, but if you're not that person today, my prediction is within a year, when I ask this same question next year, you're going to be raising your hand saying, yep, I'm getting a lot of those meetings like you're getting in terms of what can we do more. Limitless possibilities. That's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about what can you do in order to make your business stronger. So the way we're gonna finish this keynote is I challenged the team. I said, look, I want all fresh demos, all right? Which they love. Jeff loves it more than anybody. Kevin, not so much. Jeff really likes it. Honestly, the whole team said, yep, absolutely. So we wanted to do something fresh and do something different. So I challenged them. I said, okay, great. Guys, let's start a fitness company. And they're like, yeah, let's do that. All right, Contoso Fitness. So we all became partners and we all opened up this fitness franchise, and it just took off. It was crazy. We have 150 branch locations now in the US. We have 50 throughout Europe. You come and you have a little badge, you check in. We have Zumba classes, right, Jeff? Zumba, spin, some of the most best classes in the world. Each of our locations is about 15,000 square feet. Tord put together this great system of warehousing so we can purchase everything in the warehouse and get these really cheap prices, and then we can send everything out to our different locations. And the business has just really done great, but it's got some challenges. And so with those challenges, we thought, wow, why don't we spend some time talking about it? So Contoso Fitness is the same company that all of our demos over the next 2 days are gonna be around. So we don't have to keep setting it up for you, okay? And we're gonna take Contoso Fitness and we're gonna solve some interesting problems with Contoso Fitness to help inspire you to think about some of the things that you might be able to do back for your business. Sound like fun? So that's what we're gonna do today. And we're gonna start off with Jeff. So a little bit as Jeff comes up. So one of the problems that we have at Contoso Fitness is some people forget their cards. How many of you go to a fitness location, by the way? So you kind of have some idea what I'm talking about. Cool. So sometimes you forget to take your card and you're like, I forgot my card. And so, that's one problem that we have. Anyways, Jeff, how did I do? I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. So I'm Jeff Holland. I'm really excited to be here this week. We have some great stuff to show you from the entire team. And to start with, as Jim mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about this sign-up process. So there's this fitness club, Contoso Fitness, and the sign-up process is fairly traditional, right? You show up, you say, I want to sign up to be a member. It's probably January 1st or January 2nd of the year. And you're like, just don't make me sign any contracts. And you go and they have you sit down with a rep and they fill out all your paperwork and you sign your life away or whatever they make you sign. And then the staff member who's just sat with you through sign up takes that form and has to go manually enter it. And in this case, with Contoso Fitness, they have a legacy system. It's called their member management system. It's on premises, it's SOAP-based. That's where all this stuff goes. So it's a very manual process. So the first thing that we wanted to do in terms of telling this story is let's modernize this process. Let's take this very manual task of enrolling a member and see how we can automate it using systems like Azure API Management and Azure Logic Apps. So to start with, I actually am going to start with Azure API Management. Oftentimes in conversations with customers, this is the first place to go when you talk about modernizing applications and setting yourself up to integrate your system seamlessly. And that's because traditionally we hear the same kinds of problem, which is we have a monolith app, it does everything. If we need to make any changes, it takes weeks of regression testing. It's very difficult to manage. So one of the first things that you can do is just start to register your services, even as is today, if possible, with something like Azure API Management. Where possible as well, see if you can break them up into APIs, into each individual pieces of functionality so that you can scale them, test them, version them independently. This is extremely valuable. So that's just what we've done here with Contoso Fitness. We have some APIs here we'll be using this week. There's the asset management system, there's some customer system, and there's the member management service. So the first thing that we did, and I won't go into details here, but we do have sessions, is we just onboarded the SOAP-based on-premises member management system so that now we can integrate and connect to it from whatever applications that we need to. So that was great, okay? So now we have our member management system. It's automatically managed for us in API management. We'll go into more details of how that works now. But now we need to connect to it. So the tool that we've actually used to do our sign up is a tool in the business application platform, which is Power Apps. Now, if you haven't used Power Apps before, you'll notice on my screen here, this is the environment that you use. To build a Power App. It looks very much like a PowerPoint presentation almost, where I could come in here, maybe if I wanted to rearrange some text, it's a really intuitive environment for me to do so. So this is a very rapid development environment for business applications. So I've created a very simple Power App here. I'll just run it, and it lets somebody sign up to be a member of the gym. So now we could go get tablets and put them in our different locations. We could potentially even host this application online. So maybe you can sign up from your house without ever having to show up and do the back and forth with the staff member. So you see here, it's pretty simple. I give it my information, my name, my birthday, phone number, email. I mention what I'm interested in. I really like all of these things. So I'll do all of them. I can even sign it. Wow, just like my credit card signature, scribble it so they let me go. Okay, and I'll even take a picture. Great, and now I can go ahead and submit this to be a member. So behind the scenes though, I need something to process this data. I need to take this information and more than even just push it to our member management system, I may want to integrate with other services as well. Because where you can start to bring real business value is by pulling all of your applications and services across your business to be injected with the same amount of intelligence. So I'm actually going to switch over here and I'm going to build a logic app that will process this request. Now I need to get a sample of what this request looks like. So let me hurry and open up my faithful notepad to get a sample request. I actually use Visual Studio Code because I'm hip, and that's what the hip people use these days. Okay, so this is what a request from this Power App is going to look like. It will look very familiar to you. I'm going to pass in the birthday, all the information. I'm going to pass in those images as well. So let's build a logic app now to quickly process this. So I'll come over here to our designer. We have a number of different templates to choose from. And in this case, this will be invoked just from a request from my application. So I'll go ahead and just provide that sample so it knows the schema of my message. And now I can start connecting this to the systems and applications that I care about. So we already know about the first one, and it's worth calling out just how seamless it is to connect to services like Azure API Management. So I can go ahead and say, hey, I have an API that I've onboarded into API Management. I'm doing this API economy thing and getting the benefits from it. And just from pointing and clicking, Logic Apps has automatically discovered the APIs that I have, and I can choose this member management service and call that API directly as a first-class connector within my Logic App. So again, huge benefits to using services like API Management to just begin to register and onboard your application information. Now here, I'm going to go ahead and pass in. I'm going through this fairly quickly. We're going to go more into depth of how these different pieces work in a later session, but you get the idea of how easy it is to kind of stream data throughout my application easily. Okay, so this would be enough to just automate what was a manual process. But I mentioned that there's value in connecting other applications you may care about. And Jim mentioned, I think the number is something around like 161 this morning, it might be more. There are a ton of connectors to different applications that you can use, whether it's on-premises file system or SAP, Oracle, BizTalk, or services like MailChimp. And that's actually what I'm going to use here because for Contoso Fitness, we do mailing campaigns, right? If you mentioned that you're interested in Zumba and we have a new Zumba class starting up, we want to send you an email and let you know. So here, instead of having MailChimp have to be manually imported with all this membership data once a month or be out of date or whatever the manual process is, I can just say, hey, at the same time that this customer enrolls, let's just add them to our list in MailChimp. And there's this great out-of-the-box connector that connects just to my MailChimp account, and I can subscribe this member automatically for newsletters. I'll give them the first name and the last name. So again, now I'm pulling in other applications into this solution so that all of my systems across the business can all be managed and integrated so that everybody in Contoso Fitness can get the same insights and intelligence. Now, there is one last piece that I want to do, and that's because I do want to add some intelligence. And as Jim mentioned, I have here actually in my pocket, this is my keys. And you'll notice here, you might not be able to see, but I've got this little black key fob on my keychain. And this is what I use to go to the gym, as you can tell from my stunning Hollywood physique. But I do use this to go to the gym, and this is on my keychain, which is great. But on the weekends, I actually prefer to drive my wife's car because it's a little bit nicer than mine. And so often on the weekends when I go to the gym, I'll grab my wife's keys, I'll go to the gym, and as I'm walking in, I realize, oh crap, my key fob is at home, and now I've got to go wait in line. Hopefully there's a staff member available and have them manually check me in, okay? But instead of doing that, I already have all the information I need here to know who I am. Specifically, I have this beautiful face shot, okay? So I can create a call to another logic app that I've set up. And I'll go ahead and add that now, and then we'll drill into what it looks like. But we have here a connector to call other logic apps or nested logic apps. And I have a logic app right here at the top called Add a Customer Face. And I can provide an ID for that customer. I actually don't have an ID yet, so I'll just generate one using a workflow expression. Again, kind of a preview to content to come. So I'm going to generate an ID for this customer's face. I'm going to give them a name, which I want their name to be their first name and their last name. Oh, not my last name. I want the actual property last name. And now I just need to provide the picture, which I'm including in that request. Okay, so I'm going to call another logic app to process and add that customer's face. This is that other logic app. I just switched over to it. It looks similar. I'm going to trigger this one. It's going to create their face using this cognitive service for the Face API. So I can create a person and then assign this picture that they're submitting to this Face API. Now, what's great about this is I have more pictures as I begin to train this. Now I can know, based on a picture of someone's face, who they are. I can identify them just from a picture of their face. If you use something like a Surface Book, this is the same technology that you use every day to sign into your laptop when it says, sign in with a smile. So that's all it takes. So now, within a few seconds, I've not only automated this process, but I've made it so when I go ahead and submit this, it's running this logic app for me. It's adding my face to that Face API and signing me up for my MailChimp newsletters. So if our fingers are crossed and everything works great, we should end up very quickly with a processed face. And I'll come here and make sure that it's all running happily for us. It's running, and we have this beautiful debugging tool so I can see exactly where it's running. It's taking some time to add my face. I think it's processing just how beautiful of a face it really is. Do you know what I think it is, to be honest? And we can come in here. It's going to likely fail because it's going to say it can't find my face in this picture because I am on stage. But let's find out. So that's exactly what it's saying. It's saying, hey, I don't see a picture in this face, so I apologize for taking this in the lighting. But that's okay. You get the idea. If I took this and I wasn't on a stage with this lighting, and I tested this many times, it works great. But I have, because I tested this in my hotel room this morning, it does know who I am. So I can now come into the gym, and maybe if I didn't bring my keys, maybe I like riding my bike to the gym, and I don't want to have to bring my key fob and stick it in my pocket so I can ride my bike. I can just walk into any gym. I can look at the camera. We're going to cross our fingers that it sees my face this time. Let's see if I can get the lighting just right. And we'll go ahead and sign in. Oh, that time I got it. Great. So now it knows exactly who I am. It says, welcome, Jeff Holland, and I've been signed into the gym. So that's just a preview of some of the technology that we'll be going deeper into this week. But the main thing I want you to see from that is both how seamlessly you can integrate across your own first-party APIs, as well as third-party APIs, and the power that comes from bringing intelligent into those integration using services like the Azure Cognitive Services. So with that now, we'll actually switch back over to the deck, and we're going to introduce John Fancy from our team. And he's going to talk a little bit about some of the health insurance policies that they have. And John, I'm going to stick up here so I can switch to your desktop once you're done without any hiccups. Okay?
Awesome.
Great.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm John Fancy. So I work in the Logic Apps team as well. So what I want to talk through is, continuing this scenario of Contoso Fitness. So what I'm going to show here is another part of the business problem that we're trying to solve. And this is that, one of the great member benefits that we offer is health insurance discounts or insurance discounts. If you actually do go to the gym and you don't just sign up on the 1st of January or the 2nd of January, then just never show up again, you'll get kind of discounts from your insurer. So we track all the visits that you make, as Jeff just showed, every time you turn up and we recognize your face, we'll log that as a visit. And it's linked automatically to this gate system to send information on the visits to the insurer every month. So what this looks like is the member arrives, a visit is logged, a logic app will be invoked and batch up by the member ID all of the visits that you made that month. And this is using a new batching feature that we have in Logic Apps that goes out this week. And I'll show that in a second in the demo. And once you hit the required number of visits, which I've set to 12 visits a month or 3 times a week, it'll fire a batch trigger, which will release all of those visits by that member ID, and then send a notification to the member via email and send the information to the insurer as well.
Great. Okay, you're up.
All right, so let's see what that looks like. So two kind of steps to this. I've got 2 logic apps. So let me open the first one. This is called batch up visits. This is super simple. And I'm just going to call out some other things that we've released relatively recently in case you weren't aware. The first one is I'm using a SQL trigger here. So what I'm going to do is just to sort of keep this simple, I'm not going to write a Power App. I'm just going to put the visit data into a SQL database, and this will trigger a logic app for each one of those visits that gets made. The next thing I'm going to do is use this fantastic new batching feature that we have. And what this does is I create a batch name, but I have, I need to log the visits and how many visits by customer or by member, right? So I can set these advanced options and actually set a partition ID, and you set that to the member ID. So this is going to track a batch for every single member for the month and just keep a track of all those visits. And once it hits that target, it's going to fire another logic app, which is batching trigger, to release all of those visits and send out that notification. So let me just fire this off. So I'm just gonna, just in SQL, you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just inserting into the visits table 12 times, as I mentioned. So let me just grab this and select it. I'm just gonna fire that off because it'll take a few seconds and, just so we don't have to sit there and wait for it to happen. I'm now gonna open the second logic app. This is the one that's gonna fire when the goal is met. So I called this goal met. I'm gonna open this guy up, and you'll see how this works. This is really, really, really simple to do this kind of batching scenarios. So at the top, I have a batch trigger. The batch trigger says, on that batch name, the visits by the member ID partition. So for each member, for each visit, it's going to trigger once it hits 12 visits and run this logic app. So a really great way of kind of decoupling the processing from one side to the other and keeping track of everything and only releasing when you hit the target that you hit. I'm also using some other great variable features because what I'm doing here is in a for each loop, I'm going to take those visits. So I get a batch of all 12 visits. I'm going to spin around in that batch and use an Azure function, which is going to add up all the time, the duration. In that insert that I had in SQL, I'm actually sort of setting the duration of the visit to an hour. So it should batch up, and spin around in that loop, add it up to the total visit time for the month. And then the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a stored proc. So I'm just going to do a get member email, which calls a stored procedure in SQL, which returns the member ID information and gets their email address, and then send an email to that member with, hey, it's great, you hit your target for the month. Then I'm going to have the final process in a second, which actually sends this information to the insurance company. So let's just check back and see if the first logic app fired yet. So let's just open this up. I have this great run history. I can see some stuff's been going on here. So if I open this up, it's not quite fired yet. Just give that a few seconds. Oh, yeah, so 8, yeah. So hang on, let me just open the other one. So batch up visits. So hopefully this will have fired 12 times. Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I reckon that looks like 12 to me. So the first one's fired. That SQL trigger has been firing for each one of the visits that I added to that table. So the next thing I'm waiting for here is for the goal to be met and for this to fire as well. I've got a email client here, which is going to receive that email when it arrives. This actually takes up to a minute to fire. So here it is. You see it's just started running. 9:44, I can open this thing up and watch it go through. It's already completed. I can see, that it went around 12 times in my for each loop. And I can sort of spin over this, open each one of these things up, and it'll tell me, the duration, total time was 7 hours because it's the 7th item in the loop. And when I get to the bottom, I should see the email address, email information sent out. So let's just check on my email, see if it turned up. There it is. Well done, Jeff. So you actually did go to the gym 12 times in this month. And the Logic App's kind of added it all up. Awesome. So the final piece that I mentioned is that the purpose of this is to give you a member discount. So there's a third Logic App, which is this insurance feed. Now what this guy does is it uses an advanced schedule. So for those of you who aren't aware, who've used Logic Apps before and use our recurrence trigger, and you can set it to run every 5 minutes or once a day, you can do far more than that. And we'll get into a lot more of this during the sessions in the next couple of days. But this recurrence trigger actually runs at 6 a.m. on the last day of the month. You can set that up in CodeView to do that. And on the last day of the month, it's going to aggregate all of this information. It's going to run another stored procedure which gets all that member visit data and sends it to the insurer. And for that, I'm using our B2B features. So I'm using AS2. So I'm going to do a transform of that data, so convert it from JSON to XML, do a transform of that information, then use AS2 to send that information. So this is a secure format for encrypting the data that I send to my trading partner, which in this case is the Fabricam Insurance. And I actually need to know where to send that information. So we have this feature called the integration account lookup, so I can, once it's I've told it which partner I'm sending it to, in this case Fabricam, it actually looks it up and grabs the endpoint that I'm going to send it to, and then I send it over HTTP. So if I open this up, you see what I have in here is it has this metadata routing URL. So let's just quickly run this. Now, I'll show you how it resolved that URL in a minute. I'll just let this go through. If I open this up, you can see that magically, down here, it said, well, this is where you're sending it to. I'm just posting it to request bin. I can open this up. And nothing there. So let's open up that integration account. So the magic behind this that knows how to do all this AS2, all this B2B encryption and everything else is our integration account. So I have two trading partners. I have Contoso Fitness and I have Fabricam Insurance. Now if I open up Fabricam Insurance, we have this great feature called metadata where I actually set that information against the trading partner. And this is where the trading partner URL is, which is that request bin URL. So that's where I'm posting the encrypted data to. So a really simple way of kind of, again, decoupling this, holding configuration against the integration account, and the partner information is you don't have to encode all of that information in your Logic App itself. You can just change it independently and deploy it independently as well. Okay, I'm not quite sure it's not coming up in request bin, but it isn't. So I'm just going to leave it there. Let's all assume that worked, and you can see the data. And I'm going to hand over to Tord.
So, BizTalk obviously can't get rid of it. So in this scenario, BizTalk is the engine running, communicating with a data warehouse. Basically to see if we have the items, the pro shops in all of our fitness centers has the quantity that they require. Let's say they need to buy some more power bars or some protein powder. As you can see, I use a lot of that. I go to the gym all the time. No. But in the past, a lot of the things we did with BizTalk was before we maybe made an order or something like that, we would use Business Rule Engine. But with a lot of the technical and the predictive analytics and all that stuff that is bubbling around the area today, instead of doing that, let's use the data we already have. So like you saw, when we started off this business a couple of months back, I think maybe it's a couple of weeks back, it's pretty big. So we got history of all our sales. And as we're expanding, building more shops, this will also expand. So instead of ordering those 200 power bars every time we run out, let's put machine learning on top of that and predict what we're actually going to have or require for the next month. So in my simple scenario, we have the Pro Shop using a Power or a Logic app to make an order, send it to BizTalk. BizTalk will go to the data warehouse, in this case, an SAP installation running on SQL Server, just a few tables. It's a very small SAP installation. And we check the availability. If we don't have the order in stock, we're going to go to machine learning. We're going to ask, what should we really buy based on the history of our past sales? And then, in the end, accumulate all of that. And on a Friday, we're going to send that to our partners or to our vendors and order that in. So in this case, it's a simple BizTalk orchestration. Basically what it does is it gets the order in, checks the quantity, goes through the machine learning, sends it in. And all of the order that we got in this case, I already submitted them because I know I don't have a lot of time. We've got Jim coming up after this. So I got 2 of these. And the funny thing with how we can build BizTalk and how we can use the hybrid scenarios is we can have the Logic app making an order, but we can also expose this through API management, which I have, and I'll show that as well. So we got 2 Pro Shops, one 1,001 and one 4,307, sending in an order to order some of these stuff. So as we get these in, machine learning is tapping in and to see what the actual quantity we should order on these to make the best price, get the best price from our vendors, as well as making sure that we have enough for the next couple of weeks for other Pro Shops that need these items. So let me quickly go back. So as you can see, all of these are not sent to the vendor. And then we got a nice Logic app, and I got to be honest, I like Logic app a lot. It's very easy. From people who've seen me on stage before, I'm a big fan of drag and drop developers, all the BizTalk developers in here. And Logic app is kind of like that. So on this, just for the demo purpose, I made a reoccurrence to go pick up this message from SAP on-prem and create a file in my Dropbox, basically send out the orders to my vendors. And like you've seen, it's super easy. It's click, click, add all the info, and then push it out. So I'm going to let this run, and as I do that, I go back into API management, and we already talked about this. As long as I have a SOAP endpoint on my BizTalk machine, I can easily add this to API management, which I've already done. And I can do SOAP to REST. And I know you guys really want all that REST support in BizTalk and want to expose all your SOAP endpoints, but like Jim mentioned already, we want to do that better together story, and we're going to go through this in my demo as well, or my presentation. So in this case, we can also submit the order from API management through the same endpoints and get them in, and let's see if we have submitted these and they went through. And they're all sent to the vendor, picked up by Logic app, so that's the number 0 went to 1. And all of these now went out on the best price using machine learning in the background. I'm going to use this demo for my next presentations as well throughout, so we'll go more in depth of all of these features. And I'm going to leave it to Jim for the last part.
The goal for those 3 demos was just to really help to open up possibilities, to really help you think about some of the things that we wanted to bring up from, and a lot of this that we kind of borrowed from many EBCs that we've done, different scenarios, and just changed the names. So these are all kinds of similar problems that businesses were facing that wanted some guidance on. So the first thing is look for opportunities to improve the customer experience, right? Customers coming in forgot their key card, right? Why can't you just recognize my face when it comes in, right? Why do I have to come to the Contoso Fitness and wait for somebody to be available to so I can fill out my paperwork and sign up and then get my badge and then be able to work out? Why can't I do all of that from home? Why can't you just hand me a tablet and have me do that, right? So it's like, how can we improve the customer experience? So that's one of the things that we tried, that we wanted to show you here on how Jeff could do that. Find ways to make it easier for prospects to turn into customers, and that was the experience of being able to just do it from home or do it from a laptop instead of having to wait in line. And so that's one of the things that we always look for: customer pain points. Look at where your customers get frustrated and figure out, well, what can you do through an integration to remove that frustration, to make it better. Seek integration opportunities that yield a competitive advantage. This was John's idea of really like, okay, how does Contoso Fitness compete with other fitness studios? Well, if we can tell all of our members that we work with all of the major health insurance companies, and that if you opt in for us to send them your workout information, they will turn around and give you a 5 or 10% discount on your health insurance bill. Well, no other gym can do that. So all of a sudden now we're creating an advantage. We're creating a competitive advantage because we can have our business development folks go out and talk with the insurance companies and say, hey, you know, you're into wellness. We provide wellness. We just got to get people to do it. Let's figure out this motivation. Can we work a deal together? And all of a sudden now we're creating a competitive advantage where our competitors go to the IT company of the competitor and go, I don't know how they did that. How did they do that? So, and again, you can see just how simple that, you know, it's harder to do the business deal than it is to create the integration today from the technology that we created. And then use insights to gain business efficiency. So this was Tord's example in terms of how do you actually take advantage of how much of these items should we buy for the pro shop? Well, we're adding new locations every month, right? So we don't want our purchasing people to automatically just say, well, we always buy 200 more Cliff Bars. When we don't set it based on a business rule of when we get low, we buy 200 more because that's where the price break is. We've got July 4th coming up, right? We all know that our gyms are going to be more busier during July 4th. So we want machine learning to be able to look at those things and say, gosh, last July 4th, we went through 5,000 Cliff Bars. Or this one location, this one location goes through a heck of a lot more Cliff Bars on July 4th than these other locations. And start using that intelligence, those insights, in order to make better decisions based on how many we should buy. So those are examples of the kinds of challenges that businesses are facing on where integration, and we're taking these previously siloed applications that were designed to do one or two things, and by integrating them all together and adding insights and adding other capabilities, all of a sudden we're unlocking all of this tremendous value, and we're really helping the business be more competitive. We're helping our customers have a better experience. Which leads me back to you. It all comes back to you. You are the champions of this. In my experience, when I'm working with the business folks, they go, you can do that? They've stopped asking what you can do because everything was 9 months. Everything was $3 million. Everything had a huge price tag associated with it. They stopped asking, right? You can say now we can add we can add this value for hardly any incremental cost. Would you appreciate it if we could do this? When we sit down with these CTOs and enterprise architects and say, would you find it valuable if we could do this? Oh yeah, of course, but shoot, that would take forever. Well, let me show you. And Jeff half the time builds it right in front of him, just blows them away in terms of what he can do. That's you. You are the one that can say, let me show you what's possible. I want to leave you with this. Everyone thinks that there's somebody else that's there to help the business get more profitable, to help it bring in more customers. You know, we have a saying in many of the businesses that I've been associated with that everybody's in sales and marketing, right? We're all in sales and marketing. That's never more true than for this audience. You have the ability to help your businesses get more efficient, make smarter decisions, attract more customers, and make it miserable for your competitors. And we're just going to really work hard to try to give you all of the tools to do that. But you are the ones that unlock it. And I want to leave you today with that challenge to go back and re-engage with, if you haven't, with your business partners and say, let me show you some really cool things that we can do to help improve our business. The next 3 days, I'd like you to be bold, like you to introduce yourself to folks, like you to share people what problems you're having, find out what other problems everybody else is perhaps challenged with. We brought all of our thought leaders here. Take them aside. They love to talk to you about your specific problems, your specific challenges. Ask them, hey, I think the business might appreciate it if we could do this or that. How would you frame that up? They would love that kind of a conversation. Meet with Sean and talk with him about some of your issues around any of the pricing things that we have. He's here. He wants to be engaged. Meet with we have our PMs from our MSIT group here. Divya and the rest of the group, there you are. So we have our MSIT folks here. Stand up. Come on. I'm going to introduce. We have three or four, I think. So these are folks that MSIT, our IT organization, moved hundreds of workloads off of BizTalk into Logic Apps, and they're modernizing. They're taking advantage of all these things. So we eat our own dog food. So if you want to find out how they've been doing all of this, and they've written some really great tools, by the way, to help you migrate some of those workloads. So they came along and are happy to share those things with you. And then share your success stories with us. Tell us where you're winning. Tell us where you're adding value in your business. We just would love to hear those positive things. I hope you've enjoyed today. Enjoy the next 3 days. Thank you for allowing me to come and spend an hour with you today. Thank you.